good morning. Today is March 27, 2015. My name is Genesis Lara. We're here with Mr. Friedrich on behalf of the IPPD program at the University of Florida. Mr. Friedrich, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with us today. Well, we could start with you telling us your name and when and where you were born.
My name is Heinz. First name is Heinz. Last name is Friedrich. I was born in Germany, in the southern part of Germany, close to, or in a city called Stuttgart, about 82 years ago.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about your childhood, what it was like growing up in Germany?
Well, obviously I was born in 1933, and that was about 6 years before World War II started, and that was very difficult for me and my family. Like my father died in Russia in 1943. I was evacuated into another place called Tübingen, which is a small university town, because the area where I lived in Stuttgart was very much destroyed, up to 70% by regular air raids. So after the war, I came back to where I lived originally, and I went back to school and graduated there, probably when I was 17 years old. I applied for in Germany, if you want to become an engineer, which I wanted to be, you have to usually do an apprenticeship. So I applied with IBM, and I was selected out of I don't know how many hundreds of people to be one of them. And I started my apprenticeship in 1950 as a tool maker. So after 3.5 years, I graduated. And then I worked for a couple of years because I did not have any money, and my father was no longer there, so my mother didn't have much money. In order to have some money, so I could join at that time it was a sort of like a technical university in Stuttgart, in a place close to Stuttgart called Esslingen. And initially I wanted to become a mechanical engineer, and then at that time electronics and took on very strong forms. So I decided to work for another year and educate myself in whatever was needed. So I became an electrical engineer, or electronic engineer, and graduated from there in 1959. And then I joined IBM again. During that time, I spent some time in Scotland, and for the first time outside of the country, and learned some English. And as a matter of fact, when I went back from Scotland, I spoke whatever English I knew in the train to other students, and they thought I was Scottish. So this is interesting. In any case, I worked in IBM in the neighborhood of Stuttgart for about 2 or 3 years. Then I was asked whether I would take on a liaison responsibility in Endicott, New York, where they had a major development laboratory and a huge manufacturing plant, and I said, yes, I would. So I went there, and I worked there with the Americans, engineers, for about 3.5 years, came back, and then in the early part of '95, I applied for a Sloan Fellowship program at Boston, Massachusetts, and I was accepted, surprisingly, and went there and got a master's degree at that time they called it Master of Science in Industrial Management, very interesting. So in any case, finished there in '96, went back again to Germany, worked there in one location for some time, and then was employee number 5 in a new location, which we built up to a 2,500 people plant in the neighborhood of Mainz, which is right at the Rhine River. And then in about 1968, I was asked to come back to the United States and take on relatively big information system responsibility to develop a worldwide parts requirement planning system for all the IBM facilities. I did that, and about 2 years later, I was promoted to become a director of manufacturing for all world trade plants, not the technology plants, but the other plants. And then in 1974, I moved back to France at that time, stayed for 6 years in France, had all the responsibility for all the European plants, with about 20 plants over there, and all. Learned how to work with the Italians and the French and the Spanish and the Swedish and the Germans, because they were different. It was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But every nation, every country had certain pluses and certain minuses, and you have to try to get the pluses from all of them. And if you can combine that for all the countries, you have great success. In any case, so I did this, and then in 1980, I was asked to come back to the United States and become responsible as the manufacturing quality vice president for all the technology plants. We had several, we had big technology plants. And then 3 years later, I became the general manager of a 13,000 big development and manufacturing plant in the East Fiscal area. And that was very challenging because, they had so much talent and knowledge in that plant that I, as a general manager, could not compete with them. Like, we had 500 PhDs and 1,000 master students and 2,000 bachelors there. Mm-hmm. And I said, what can be my role as a general manager? So my role was to work with them, to challenge them, and also to let them do their own thing, and to the best of my ability. And then, of course, in 85, I was moved to the headquarters and eventually became an IBM vice president. That's an officer in the company, which is about the highest I ever could achieve. I was the first IBM vice president, and that's my old German. Okay. My grandfather brought that back from France in World War I. So he found it on a piling in one of the burned out houses on his back. In any case, so I became the IBM vice president. And at age 60, you have to retire. Okay. You don't have to retire, but you have to relinquish the job you're in, so they bring new people in there. Okay. And I did this. And so I planned to move here to Florida. I bought the land already. And as an IBMer, you had to, IBM officer, you had to assume responsibility for certain customers. Like, I was the customer relationship executive for Caterpillar, and which is a big manufacturing company. They make earth-moving equipment and so on. And I also was working with a company out in Oregon. Name is Friedrich. It's a big truck company. And then I said, I also want to be a customer relationship executive for the University of Florida. Okay. And they said, well, if that's what you want to do, that's what we do, okay? So I became the relationship executive for IBM to the University of Florida. And I used this to come down here probably 2 or 3 times a year. I worked primarily with the engineering departments, but also with the business school, and of course with their information system department, and which was very interesting for me. I also, in my job in IBM, I had a big responsibility for manufacturing research and had some money, so I sponsored some research projects in industrial and system engineering and mechanical engineering and so on. So when usually Win Phillips was very nice and hosted a little luncheon for me and some of the professors. And I told him, look, I have to retire next year. And he said, well, what are you planning to do? I said, well, I would like to maybe teach. I always wanted to teach or something. He said, well, when you are done, see me, maybe I have a job for you. Okay? And I wasn't quite sure whether that was the right thing because it's pretty far away. Okay, so I had interviewed with the University of North Florida and also with the University of North Carolina. It's a state university, and in both cases I said that's not for me. They did something wrong with me, but I didn't like that. So I went back to Win and said, hey, I'm available now. And he said, come over. He sat down with me, and then he said, all right, I'd like you, as your first assignment, to advise us. Can you get me some water? Oh, she's gone. To advise me what I should be doing with manufacturing, okay? And of course, that was my specialty. You know, I knew manufacturing in and out. I had written a big summary of what manufacturing should be and so on. And I said, okay, I'll do that. They had some money at that time, which was called the Succeed Fund. And it was about $350,000. And he wanted to do something with that fund in the area of manufacturing. And some funds were already used by I think the chemical department called a mega course. Do they still have that?
They still have the mega course, yes.
Okay, so they established a mega course with process engineering. I taught some of the courses there. And then they gave some money to the CIS department. And then he had about money for 3 or 4 faculties left in order to create a manufacturing function. And I said, all right, I'll advise you what we can do. And I developed about 6 alternatives of that, and said this is the one you should be doing, but I advise you not to do it because you are way behind in manufacturing. It will take you a lot of time. You may have to pull students from other departments in there, and they may not be attracted by that because manufacturing since about the 50s did not have a good reputation for students. They didn't want to do that. And then I said an alternative to all that would be that based on my experience, manufacturing really it's an interdisciplinary function. You can teach manufacturing in each department related to a specific department, but you cannot, what you have to do is to have to bring interdisciplinary content to manufacturing education. So I advise them that what you can do is leave whatever manufacturing courses you have in your current departments, like mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or CIS. They didn't have much. And then in order to get the interdisciplinary content, let's create something like a capstone where we bring students from the various departments together and we let them develop a product from cradle to grave, so to say, and so that they learn as engineers what it takes to develop a product, first from a conceptual point of view, then from an overall system point of view, and then details and build a product. So that was the basic proposal. I said, I like that, let's develop it, okay? I said, that's easy to say. And then I said, well, I can do that, I will make a proposal, but what I need to do is I need you to give me some help, okay? So I said, my first help is I want to go to the department chairs, okay? And let's limit us to about 6 or so department chairs. Now we have more departments anymore. In any case, 6 department chairs, like mechanical, industrial, electrical, I think CIS was in there, in material, something like that. And I said, I also want to be able to go to the business school. So I met with these department chairs. By that time, I had an outline of what we wanted to do with this interdisciplinary course. I don't think we called it IPPD, then we called it something else, like product realization process or something like that. So I went to them and said, this is what we want to do. That's the timetable, and we will start it up in a year from now. And the department chairs almost fell off their chairs. I remember Professor Ullman, who was the department chair of electrical. He said, we never can do any kind of a program like that at a university. It will take us between 2 and 3 years. I said, well, let's try for one, okay? So the nice thing was the proposal which we had gave something not only to the students, but also to the faculty and also to industry, and it solved some of the major concerns surveys said which are needed in the education of engineers, which is, being able to work in a team, being able to communicate, being able to understand business like economics and so on. How do you judge something? Understand, how you work with in an interdisciplinary, not just in your specific department. And like, for example, we had a Professor Tiedemann. He was the chair of the mechanical engineers, and he said, it's the right thing to do. I want to do that, so I had them with me already, okay? I had another chair, a department chair. His name was Jack Elsinger. He was ISE, and he said, he was teaching, but he said, that's not enough. I have to work with other functions. He was with it. And then Ullman finally said, all right, we'll try it, and so on. And so did chemical, and of course, Gerhard Ritter in the Department of Information System at the time. He was very interested. So the department chairs said yes. I said, all right, what I need from you now is a task force of people who can go through the various, help me to work through the program and how we introduce this. And so we created an initial task force of about probably 10 professors, okay? And they selected some of the best professors they had in a department to work there. Business school was represented too. And it was interesting because, I told them, this is what we want to do. And I said, what do you think, what are the issues and concerns with that? And up to the date, I regret that I asked that question because they came up with initially about 60 issues and concerns. And then we brought this down to 26. And then we finally brought it down to 16 in order to resolve that. So this was pretty hard. Then we took this, and so then I did some benchmarking together with some of the professors to look at various similar capstone programs. I probably looked at about 50 of them, and I selected one, maybe two, which were probably mostly what I thought we wanted to do, and that was the Brigham Young capstone. I went out there and looked at it, and they were very helpful and nice, and we modeled a lot of what we did after theirs. What they did not do was what I thought we have to do is they were not interdisciplinary. What they did was essentially all in mechanical engineering. And I said, no, we have to, every product we develop, at least the products we get from our industry here, they have more than just the mechanical engineering content. There will be electrical engineers, maybe information systems people, and so on. And we So I took the basic concept was good, but we added to that the much stronger interdisciplinary content to our proposal. So I developed a detailed proposal, and then I went to in the college at that time. I still think we have that. It's called an Engineering Advisory Council. This is a group of industry people who come together to the university on a regular basis, and maybe once a year or twice a year and so on. And they will sit down with the college and talk about what the college does, and whether they agree with it and so on. And I went to them and said, this is what we plan to do. This is the advantage for our students. This is the advantage for our faculty. And this is something you would have an advantage too, because if you give us these products, which you would not address because they are not giving you the right return, but having us do it for $15,000, that's nothing for you. You get something for that too. You also get students later on or graduate engineers that have a lot of experience in how to develop and introduce a product. And they liked it. They all supported it. So we had industry support, I had faculty support, and most important, also the dean's support. He was the biggest support of all of them. So we started it, and we had to go out and recruit 5 projects first, and then it was kind of interesting because you had to sit down and say, what are the criteria for a product which we want to develop? You had to say, all right, how much time do we think the students can spend on something like that in addition to everything else that they're doing? And we concluded soon that probably 600 to 800 hours, which was underestimated. But in any case, hold on. It had to be a product which they did not need immediately, because we took about a year to develop this product. It couldn't be a product which was which required a lot of research, because with this development process which we had, there was only a certain amount of time to develop a preliminary design, a system design, and prototype. And we had 1 year to do that. And we also said we want a liaison engineer from you who talks to our students on a weekly basis to give them his or her experience so that they learn from him. And we want to come and see you. And by the way, you also have to pay us $15,000 at that time. Okay. So the reason why we needed some money was because in order to get faculty as coaches, I said I need about $10,000. I don't know how much they pay them today, probably no longer minimum wage. It will be more than that. I don't know.
We go a little, not much beyond that. Okay. I think we give them a 10% raise.
Okay, that's good. All right, whatever. They got $10,000 because we were asking them to coach 5 people or teach 5 people instead of, let's say, 50 at the same time. So it was not a very effective way. But they needed some of that, so they could use that money in order to hire a graduate student to do some of their research to replace them and so on and so forth. So that was helpful. And usually what we did, in any case, that's what we told the industry, and they said, fine. We went out. The university development, they have a development organization which tries to work with the industry to get connections, to get manufacturing research projects and so on and so forth. They were very helpful to identify customers who would want to do business with us, and We still have that today?
We do. So we have, and that organization has grown to the point now where they've brought on board a corporate relations person that works more closely with IPPD,
All right.
as well as having individual officers for each of the departments.
Okay. So, in any case, that was sort of like my years until now. Okay?
Yeah.
Long answer to a short question. I'm sorry.
It was great.
You should have interrupted me.
No, because you were covering questions as you went along. So we also interviewed Win Phillips about this program, and he talked a lot about you, and he quoted you several times. And he said that when you had the idea for IPPD, that you said, I'm about to retire from IBM, I'm going to move to Jacksonville, my wife and I are going to spend a lot of time on our yacht. But I wouldn't mind spending a couple of days a week in Gainesville to help formulate the program. So you asked for an apartment in Gainesville and no salary. So what was it about IPPD that made you believe so much that even after you retire, you explained this program, it's a job that you had?
Well, first of all, I wanted to teach, okay? Mm-hmm. There was no question about it. Mm-hmm. Secondly, when I was elected a fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineers in the UK, mm-hmm. and my wife can show that to you. I did a lot of work in the last few years in my career to think about what one has to do to be a world-class manufacturer. A world-class manufacturer includes development and includes manufacturing and all this stuff, okay? And I concluded that in order to be a world-class manufacturer, you have to be able to develop products not sequentially, as we did for many years, but in parallel. And in order to do that, you needed not only development engineers, you also needed manufacturing engineers who could influence the design during that process in order to get not only a manufacturable product, but also a product which would allow you to get the right quality and so on and so forth. And we did not in IBM, and we hired from the best schools. I always, and don't forget, when I was responsible for manufacturing, I had 54 plants around the world and 120,000 people. And I had a cadre of about 500 to 600 people who were part of the high management potential. One of them, by the way, is now the CEO of Apple, Cook. He was one of my high management potentials, yes, at that time. Yeah, I know. In any case, we lacked we lacked engineers who could participate in that early development process. Mm-hmm. So that's one area which you have to have in order to be a world-class manufacturer. I knew that at that time, when we did that, the United States was falling behind in developing, in being competitive in manufacturing. And a good reason for that was that it took us much longer to develop a product, okay? Like, for example, the Japanese could develop a car in 40 months. It took us in the United States 60 months, okay? And in IBM, it took us 7 years to develop a large-scale computer. We had to reset the design criteria several times, okay? And the longer it takes you to develop a product, the more money you spend for engineering, of course, and therefore you have to not only ask for a different price to get a return, you also may have to, as you go through it, you may have to reset your initial design criteria and so on. So I said, if I can educate engineers in working in this, what I call the interdisciplinary design, product and process design, and teach them how to do something like that, which I said was lacking all over the United States industry. Not in all industries, but in many, okay? I think I can contribute to the competitiveness of the United States. So that was a major motivation for me. And I also knew that the engineers which we hired, and believe me, IBM hired from some of the best schools, at least 70 to 80% of the hires came from the best schools. We did not have, like when I was responsible for 13,000 people in East Fishkill, we had a big development and research organization there, and we started up a new product, developed it. I did not find enough manufacturing people I could assign into this development process in order to develop not only the function of a product, but also the manufacturability for quality and so on at the same time. This was very important. The way how we did it, we assigned development engineers to do that. The reason why we lacked this was that since about the 1950s in the United States, manufacturing took on a very bad reputation, and the engineering was oriented more towards science and research, and manufacturing was considered a low-level job. We are not interested in that. And so we lost in the United States over time, we lost a lot of our manufacturing engineering talent, which we had. Just imagine what we did in 1941. The United States the Germans declared war at the United States, and then the U.S. geared up to one of the most impressive ramp-up in manufacturing. They made thousands of planes a day and tanks and whatever else, and that beat the Germans finally. So they had a lot of manufacturing engineering talent. And after the war, they thought, all right, we know all how to do that. We don't concentrate that much more in engineering education on manufacturing. And that hurt us in the 70s and 80s. We started to become less and less competitive in the 70s and 80s and in the 90s. And we finally tried to understand what we could do. First we said, in the 70s we said, we have to concentrate now on quality. In the 80s we have to concentrate on cost. And suddenly in the late 80s and 90s we said, no, what we have to do is we have to develop products in a shorter period of time, and we have to make sure that manufacturing participates in that, because if you want to influence the design of a product, you have to do it while in the early phases of a product. Once the product is done, prototype is done and tested, and you throw it over the fence and give it to the manufacturing people, your ability to change cost or influence quality or something like that is very small, because the design is fixed. And the only way you can change it is that you come up with a lot of engineering changes and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And that is very expensive too. And also the engineering costs to do first development and then do manufacturing, this was just too much. We were duplicating too much. So I was motivated this was my conviction, and I wrote about this, and I studied it, because I saw that in IBM, that if we can do this, then I think in a small way we can contribute to the manufacturing, to the education of our engineers, so that we can try to prevent or lose further our competitiveness. And that was not only me thinking that way. Brigham Young thought about that. That's a reason why they had a big capstone conference in 94. No, in August 94, yes, where they presented all their capstones, because they said, this is what we have to address to educate our engineers in doing something different than what we have done in the past. That Brigham Young did that in line with what I thought, and so we did that too. That was my motivation.
Okay.
And obviously I also wanted to do something which interested me. Okay.
So then you definitely felt that the engineering industry in the United States was at a specific point, and the IPPD was an answer to the problems that...
Not at a specific, in an environment which needed correction. And we had to bring different students to the table, different educated students to the table who could help the situation. I don't know whether we were, but I tell you, when the early students, when they wrote up their thesis or whatever they did, and applied for a job, and they told the whatever company wanted to hire them that this is what they did. I think this was a wonderful reputation and was helpful. Is that still the case?
That's still the case. I think they market heavily what they do in IPPD, and we try to help them also with their messaging to kind of get down what they're doing concisely.
Yes.
Okay.
So, next question.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Phillips also said that at one point you walked into his office and you said that this was the hardest job that you've ever had. What were some of the challenges in going from the corporate world to working now with university faculty? How was that transition?
I don't think I ever said that, because that's not how I felt. When I, see, when you had a job like I had before, and you have to work with all kinds of nationalities, okay? Germans, which were stubborn, the French, they were super intelligent, the Italians were very emotional, so everyone had this, the Spanish were very, strict and so on. And the Swedes were, we have time to do it tomorrow, sort of. Everybody has a little bit, but they all had something to contribute, and you had to be able to work with these people and manage these people. And not manage in the sense that you tell them on a regular basis, this is what you have to do, but to motivate them to do what you wanted to do, okay? And I tell you, when I first of all, what surprised me was I found a very open mind with Win Phillips. He was the top faculty at that point of time. And he was... And that's the reason why I didn't go to University of North Florida and go to North Carolina University. I did not see that at all. Okay, so but he was very open-minded. He was ready to do something. He listened to you, and he accepted what you said. I was very surprised to find out that most of the department chairs, out of the 6, at least 5 were very open-minded to do something like that and help. And there was one of them who said, I don't know whether this will work and so on, but he came in later on. And he still gave me some of the best faculty coaches. And so I did not have any problem with him at all. If you have a product to sell, which is attractive, that's what you have to do, you have to be able to do is, whether it's an industrial environment or a university environment, people will work with you and are ready to do it. Then when I went a level further down, the first task force was a little bit difficult because they had all these issues and concerns. And I listened to them and said, all right, well, that's one of them. I was not arguing with them because in the end, every time they said something, there was something true. Let me give you, for instance, we have this credit system. An undergraduate should be, after 128 credits, he can graduate. Is that still true? I don't know.
That's roughly
okay.
Maybe the legislature's kind of reduced it a little bit.
So they all had some kind of a capstone in their departments, and they got 3 credits for them. I said, we need 2 semesters to do this, 6 credits. They said, you cannot do that, and should we give him a certificate? It was a big issue, okay? And unfortunately, I had one of them. His name is Spiros Svoranos. He said, I'll take that on, and I'll resolve this, okay? So he went to every department and fix this, and departments finally came around and were able to do that. In some cases, they had to change the sequence of how they were teaching things so that the students, when they started the IPPD program, were ready to do this, okay? But, so that was not a surprise to me, but I thought that was a valid concern. They all were concerned about should we, and I understand Keith is doing this now a little bit different, but that's aside the point. They all said, should we, I said, we want to have a structured development process, okay? Which it was, for me, this was important because the development process which I proposed was based on several benchmarks I did with industry and also with the commercial industry and with the defense industry. And so this was sort of the practical thing. I still have the IBM development books, the stick for software and hardware and so on and so forth. And I was a part of that. I knew this. I went to HP, Hewlett Packard, okay, and others and so on, to Honeywell and so on. And I went to some of the defense industries here and said, how do you develop product? And all of them had essentially the same thing. They say, this is a phased approach. Because in order to develop a product, you have to have certain funds, okay? And you say, all right, I give you $10 million to develop this product. However, I want to do that, I will give you that in steps. Say, all right, after the first step, which we call prototyping, not prototyping, how do we call it?
Conceptual design.
Conceptual design. And they had to make a business case on it. And if we found out that this worked, and the customer had to agree to that, so now you can do it. So I said, all right, you spend your first $2 million, I give you the next $2 million to go to the next one. Everyone had a phased approach. And in order to pass that phase, they had to come up with certain deliverables, and the students hated the deliverables, and the faculty too, and still do, I'm quite sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, they don't like that, because the professors are used to manufacturing research, and they do whatever they please to do, and so on. And I'm overdoing it. I mean, they are very smart people, okay, so they know what they are doing. But this was a discipline, German discipline, okay? And in any case, so they did not like that. And I said, all right, this is the reason why we have to do it. And they all turned around and said, okay, we agree. Okay? So we had to knock off and work with them, listen to them, because they all came, with certain concerns about what to do. But in the end, I think I had the most wonderful initial task group. They all worked, most of them. And I had the best faculty coaches at the beginning. They really worked very hard and were motivated to do that. Or even the department chairs, like, for example, I said, if we want to do that, I give you these examples in order to say I did not have a problem, okay? And so you can tell that to Win Phillips when you see him next time.
I've never met him.
No problem. By the way, he made me a courtesy professor within a month or something like that. And I said, man, I'm a professor now. But he said, at no pay. Okay.
No pay.
I said, that's all right. He said, I will pay you some expenses, like when I went out to Brigham Young and so on, pay travel expenses. They changed that a little bit, but of course, when I left, I was always introduced as the lowest paid engineer in Florida. And of course, when Keith came in, he blew the whole budget in IPPD because everything suddenly became twice as or 3 times as expensive because they had to pay him full salary. They didn't pay me anything. Okay, so all right. In any case, I want to give you some examples. Like what you have to do is when you start a program like that, you have to be imaginative, and you have to have support from some of the players. Like, for example, I said, we need a design. We need design cells where the students can meet and discuss their design and work, prepare whatever deliverables they have, and hopefully also have a computer in there in order to work on this whole thing. And if you ask the engineering school for space, it's like blowing in the wind. It doesn't work. So the department chair of mechanical engineering, Tiedemann, said, look, I can give you some space for the next year, 1 year, okay? I don't know whether I need it after that. So we suddenly had space to start up the program. I had one space in the laboratory of ISE, and I had 2 design cells in the space he gave us. Or, like we said, man, we don't have any money to buy computers. So I said, all right, let me see what I can do. So I went to IBM and said, how about giving us donate some computers to us? And of course, the University of Florida was a major customer to IBM. I went to some of the alumni of IBM who still worked in IBM and said, look, you have to help us to get these things down here. And when the dean gave us a big chunk of space, because we were rapidly growing in the new engineering building, we got all new IBM computers at that time. Of course, now you use others, but whatever it is. These were all personal computers with a central computer and stuff like that. And we got this. So you have to do something. Like when you start up a program, you have to ask for help. My first project I did with them was we had to design a printed circuit board. Okay? And a printed circuit board, one of a kind, is pretty expensive. This was way beyond the $15,000. So I went to some of my industry friends and said, I need a circuit board like this. Can you donate that? And they did this, okay. Or we went to a manufacturer here in Jacksonville and asked him to do something and so forth. So the response from industry was very positive, and they were very, very helpful to get us projects. The faculty was a little bit hesitant. That's the reason why I have all these issues still here and what we told them. They were, as I said, we boiled it down to 26 issues and then finally to 16, and we had an answer for each one of them. And I assigned it to them. I said, this is an issue. Why don't you come back with an answer? Like the credit thing, I said, Spears, if you can help us there, that would be great. And I found them very open-minded and very helpful, not different than what I expected. And what bothered me a little bit more was the administration in the university. That is completely different, They think they are really the responsible part in an engineering school. That was not as easy. But even there, with some influence through the dean and so on, this was manageable. So I had no problem. I don't think so. But not more than what I would have expected anywhere else.
Okay.
So what else did he say what I said?
Oh, you can read the transcript.
Well, Heinz, so there was a funny story that Jack Elzinga told me.
Yeah.
He said the first time that you called a faculty meeting, that only about half of the faculty members showed up. And you called their department chairs to inform them that you were their boss. They work for me, they're supposed to be here. How did that go down?
No, I didn't say that. I would never say that. I said, this is an important project, and we need you. Okay, we need your coaches to be here, and please help. And by the way, I would not go to the department chair. I would go to the faculty first. Okay, I'd never do that.
Okay.
Because you don't do this. Okay, you go to the faculty first and say, look, I need you here. And we had weekly meetings with all the faculty over the first year and second year and so on and so forth. And while they not all participated in the weekly meetings, but usually we had about a 70 to 80% attendance, which is not bad, considering that these people had, of course, a lot of other responsibilities.
Okay. So I know a large part of what you did was train the faculty. So how did you go about training faculty, especially because you were talking about that you wanted this to be something imaginative, but they also had to produce deliverables. So how did you take your faculty to train them to be able to work with students to produce these type of things, especially on these teams of 5 or 6, because it's very different than what they were accustomed to. So how did you go about teaching teachers?
Well, one issue which we had was that none of the faculty really knew how to develop a product. Okay? That was the biggest issue. I found this out relatively, with exceptions. Like, for example, if you took somebody from industrial engineering, like Suleiman Tofeci, who worked in industry, he knew it, okay? And the others had a lot of experience in how to do a manufacturing research project, but they did not have an experience on how to develop a product, really, with phase reviews and so on and so forth. So that was a problem. So early on, I decided that I had to involve them and train them, not train them, but work with them so that they knew what we were expecting to do. And there were various ways to do that. Like when I went out and lobbied an industry for a product, I usually took one of the faculty coaches with me. And during that time, I learned with them. We talked to the customer and said, how do you develop products? Can we do that? And so on. So they heard about this, okay? And they knew that deliverables are something you have to have, okay? And then during the summer, I sat down, and by the way, my wife was my secretary during this time. I didn't have any administrative support over there, so it was a teamwork. In any case, over the summer, I sat down and wrote I think it was an IPPD guide, which Keith then, with his much better educated English and so on, revised later on. But we issued that in about probably a month or 2 months before the program started, okay? And during the summer, I took all of the faculty through that IPPD guide. So this is what we want to do. Why do we need deliverables? So that we know where we are and that we know we can proceed to the next step. You need to know that because you are part of that program. So you have to have some kind of a measurement to do that. And they all accepted that. They didn't like it. I don't think they really didn't like it, but what I think is that students didn't like it, and that reflected on the coaches, and the coaches had to convince them that they have to do that. Okay? Because some of the deliverables are, they say, why do we have to do all these deliverables? We want to design products. So that's sort of the attitude. Okay? But the reason why you want to do that is because you want to accomplish something at a certain period of time and in a reasonably well controlled. The deliverables were not always 100% as I would have liked to see them, but they were good enough to say, yes, you can now go to phase 2 or something like that. And it helps the faculty to manage this cycle. And so we had like a book, for developing products, both hardware and software at that time. And that may have changed several times. And we may do it different today. I would hope we do certain things different today because we know better. And everyone, this became part of the weekly lectures which we gave. Like we would have we would say for lecture 1, you want to read chapter 1 and 2 in the guide. Okay, we would have a faculty coach stand up for the 100 or 50 or whatever people we had and say, this is what the next deliverable will be, and this is what you have to consider, and so on and so forth. And that's the reason why we do it. So this is what we did. And then in addition to that, they went through these weekly lectures, so we could teach them, what is quality and what is a business case and how do you estimate something, other things which they usually would not learn in their individual departments. So, I just hope that he didn't give up completely the structure design, because I got a note from him in 2007. He said, "Oh, he's weak. He gave into the faculty and leaves. Now everybody can do whatever they want to do. It's like a manufacturing research."
We didn't go quite that extreme, but we did provide some flexibility to modify the roadmap to adapt to particular types of products. So, for instance, if a product required additional feasibility studies up front before you could make a concept selection, we did allow them to maybe carry that preliminary design all the way to December as opposed to mid-October timeframe. Spiros is kind of our chief fiddler with the process, yes. So, but
well, I don't want to get involved in that.
Yeah.
I probably would not have agreed with that.
Yeah, I see your face. Well, I wanted, because we've been talking a lot about the faculty, but I wanted to know, what were your interactions like with the students? Because we're dealing with undergraduate students for the most part that haven't entered the workforce. So how was it like having them go from having to take exams to actually producing a product for a company, for a client?
No, I'm not sure I understand. How did they react?
Well, how was your interaction with them, or with the students? Like, how
Well,
yeah.
I'm not sure I answer your question correctly, but all the students, and it's very general, it's not true for everyone, but generally we selected students who we thought were qualified to do that. This is not for all students, okay? And as a matter of fact, I'll come back to your question about in the third year, we ramped up to 29 projects, okay? From 5 in the first year to 18, and then we did 23 and 29. And and 4 of them did not work out. Why? Because the students were not capable, okay? Maybe not motivated, but it looked that they were not capable to do that. So we selected good students, okay? And that's a certain criteria what you do in order to select. And when you do that, you get, and they all had to sign up for that, so they were motivated to some degree to participate in that. We then had a procedure whereby we would explain to the students what the projects were we were supposed to design, and then they could volunteer on what project they would like to participate. To some degree, we had to finally balance it out, okay? So they already were motivated to do that. We took them in the first few sessions through team working exercises and things like that. And after about 2 weeks, they were gung-ho. They were, "Oh, this is the greatest thing I ever do," and so on and so forth. And then when the first deliverables approached, it went a little bit downhill, and then went downhill further. And then when they saw the result of the whole thing, let's say at the end of the year, or when they made the first, or it came up to some degree when we took them to the, after the first 6 or 7 weeks, I forgot, when they have their preliminary design concept and the cost and so on, we usually go and visit the customer, okay? And that's usually when I take them there, I take them to eat something and take them out and motivate them and so on and so forth. By the way, it's interesting. The first year students were happy when I took them to McDonald's. Then after the 3rd or 4th year, I had to go to, what is it? Crocky Bell? What is it? No. It's the Bell, something like that. It's a better restaurant, okay? And then I had to go to an even better restaurant. So this what was interesting. Was I like, should we go to McDonald's? Oh, not really, So it was interesting how they were wealthier, or they had more money or something like that. And I said, I don't go to McDonald's. In any case. So it was a big morale booster for them when we took them there. It was team building. I always rented we rented a little bus. We were in the same bus. We ate together. We talked to each other. We went to there. The engineers came in and listened to them. We toured the facility. Top management came in and talked to them and so on. And they said, we are important. This is important. And so this was morale. And then, of course, they had to go through all these system-level design and maybe doing some modeling and things like that. And then they had to still attend weekly lectures and so on. Maybe report every so often about where they were and so on. So it became a drag on them, and they had to spend time on that, and that ate into the other time they could, allocate to the other studies. So it became a little bit difficult for them, and some of them jumped out as a result of that. But then come the system-level review, and they usually put a very nice presentation together, and they met with their sponsors, and the sponsor pat them on the back or whatever else it was. Suddenly they had a morale booster. And then it went down again, and then when they saw that everything comes together in a prototype, and the prototype reasonably well works, they were elated. I had dozens of students come in my office and say, thank you, this is the best thing I ever did. So this is not a straight, everything goes down and so on. This is like this here. And of course, in some cases, and Keith knows that, we also had, it also depended on the faculty coach. The faculty coach the faculty coaches, they are not used to manage a group of people, motivate them and bring them along and so on and so forth. Of course, some of them know how to do it, but not everybody does it. This is a people management skill. That's the reason why they are professors or not managers, okay? So they just go into a classroom and then this is what you have to do and so on and so forth, and this is the test, and then it's done, okay? It's different. You have to meet with them and say, all right, like you as a student would say, I really don't want to do that, or I cannot do it, and I need help, or something like that. Then you, as the faculty coach, have to say, all right, how can we help you to do that? I mean, I do that today, and I teach navigation and boating safety and all that stuff here. And some say, I cannot do that. I fail, and so on. I said, all right, come here, we sit there, have a cup of coffee, and I'll show you how to do this. So you have to, you never can, in this environment, you never can take a disciplinary action and say, all right, you dumbbell, you should be able to do that. You have to say, all right, let me help you, okay? And they never, in most cases, they will not reject it. But they, I don't know, must have the same problems today.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's a same thing, in life. There are certain things which you like to do and certain things you don't. Mm-hmm. And you have to take the bad with the good, or the good with the bad, or whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. And that was a good experience for them. If they do it in real life later on, would be exactly the same problem.
How did it feel for you when they came into your office and said this was the best thing you had ever done? Because at that point, you weren't just a businessman, you were also a teacher. So, I mean, how was that like when the students came to validate their IPPD experience? Like, you started this program and it meant so much to the students. What did that mean for you?
What does it mean for me?
That the students were happy, that they enjoyed what they did.
I'm not sure I understand. Ask the questions again, Genesis, okay.
What did it mean for you that the students really loved the IPPD experience? Like, what did that feel like?
How does it feel?
Yeah.
Well, I felt very good that this program worked, okay? And I proved many critical people wrong, that we can do something in a year and not 3 years. And I remember Professor Uhlmann, he came back to me and said, Heinz, I never thought you could do this. So this was nice. And of course, Win was very complimentary and so on and so forth. What we did is to the students, like after the first course, I arranged a barbecue somewhere on the grounds of the of the university, I forgot where, with Wally, he was one of the real estate guys or so. He had a big smoker and so on, so I brought it in and I paid for all the barbecue. All the students appeared there. I invited Vin Phillips to come. And he always came. And the students were elated. It was the best thing I ever did, okay? And what happens then is that some of the students stayed on, and they would tell other students, what their experience is. They will say, all right, well, look, there are some problems, but there's some good things, but overall, I like that. And he gets a report regularly from some of the students after they left and said, that's the best thing I ever did. What we also did is, and I knew that from my times at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, you have to be able to quantify whether the students really learn something. So we developed a matrix of, what's your experience or understanding of this, and this at the beginning of the course, okay? And then we measured this again at the end of the course, and generally you would see there's a significant upward trend. And I think Keith at least has done it up to a few years ago. You still do it?
Still do it.
Okay, this is very important to understand. And you can use that to talk to other students and say, look, this is what happens to you. You will suddenly understand what is a interdisciplinary design process. Okay? You will understand how to design a product. You will understand what manufacturing role is in there and things like that. So that's very important. Then we also ask them for their opinion. And that is sometimes mixed, like some students will say the best thing I ever did, and the others say that's the worst thing I ever did. You will have this. As long as the majority says it's good, you take the good with the bad, okay? And I don't know how much negative responses you get, but sometimes they say I didn't like it for the following reason, and then you have to listen to them, okay, and say, all right, maybe we have to do something different, no question about it. But you get good and bad, but hopefully more good than bad.
Okay. So you directed the program, you helped start it, and then at some point it was decided to hire an associate director, which is where Dr. Sandhill comes in.
Yeah, that was my big mistake.
Do I need to leave the room now?
No, let me explain. Look, I think it was in the fourth year. It was in the 98, 99, I think. So after that, I went to see Vin Phillips. I said, Vin, this is what I do right now. I spend about 140 or 160 days at the university or recruiting projects. Initially, it took me about 15 hours to recruit a project, and it takes them, because you call them up, all that's time spent. And now it takes me anywhere between 20 and 25 hours a project. We ramped up to 29 projects. 4 of them failed, so we have to bring that down, reorganize, and then maybe we can ramp up again. In addition to that, since I joined the university, I accepted at least, I was on 1 board before, now I was on 5 boards, okay? And that interested me a lot because it allowed me to meet with peers of mine in a board. And the board, usually I was the manufacturing and development expert on a board, so they asked me to do all kinds of assessments, like I had to go to Czechoslovakia and look at a company they wanted to buy or something like that, or we wanted to buy a company up in Holland or something like that, or out to whatever. So I was involved very deeply in some of the, more than what a normal board member was, and that interested me, okay? So I was in 5 boards. Then Sarbanes-Oxley came around, and suddenly the amount of work as a board member you had to do doubled or tripled, okay? I was in the audit committee meeting, and maybe I spent for 4 meetings a year, maybe 5 to 10 hours. Now suddenly I had to spend 30 hours per meeting and so on. So I was stressed on time, and my wife was working part-time in the hospital, so I was lucky to see her once in a while, and I said, I think as we grow this thing, and I'm not quitting yet, we have to bring in help, okay? And so and I said, the help can be either we beef up certain functions there, or better would be if we would try to bring up somebody who could replace me, because, I was starting to become 70 years old and so on, and I said, no, maybe I should relax a little bit more. And 82 now, I'm still not relaxed, so I don't know when this starts, okay? In any case, so we went out and tried to hire somebody who could take on some responsibilities and eventually grow into this job. And so we had 3 or 4 candidates and so on, and I interviewed them, and we finally zeroed them on. It was maybe a mistake, but we did, okay. So in any case, then Keith came on board, I think it was in 99 or 2000 or something.
May of 99.
So he came in, and that was a big help, But he also had to learn, a little bit what this whole thing is all about. Like the first thing he did is he retyped the whole IPPD guide. I will never forget. I said, why do you do this? Well, he said, there are too many errors in there. I said, that's fine. All right, let's fix it. But he did that also in order to learn what is in the guide, to learn what we are doing. I think that was the motivation. Then in the following year, we started to split. I was still recruiting most of the products, but then the following year, we said, all right, you do this many and I do this or something like that. And then finally I said, all right, you are on your own. So it was a phase-in of maybe 2.5 or 3 years and so on. And it's complex. And neither he nor I like to go out and recruit products. This is a pain in the butt. That's all I can say. I mean, you call up somebody and say, look, we like to get what it is, a project for IPPD. So the first response will be, okay, that sounds good, I will think about it, okay? So you take a record, you have to record all this. You said, I called HP at such and such a date, he will think about it. And I said, maybe he thought about it. I called him a week later and said, have you thought about it? This is what it takes. And then finally he may say, yeah, I have something. I said, all right, can we visit with you? And when would be a good time? And then it gets different. Then you bring faculty there, and then usually you do that. You don't do that alone. Sometimes you select faculty which would probably fit this, okay? And then you go there and look at it, and sometimes you will say, all right, this project is way too difficult, or it should be a little bit more difficult or more complex and so on. So his judgment and the faculty, experienced faculty, will judge on whether this project is doable. All that takes time. Okay? Then you have to write up this whole thing, and then finally you have to be able to present it to the students. And sometimes like for example, I worked for a company called Paradigm. And so they would say, I want the following students in the team, because we are looking for electrical engineers or something like that. So they said, that's what I would like to do. Or I want you as my coach or something like that. So they would have specific requirements because they had experience with somebody. So, but it's okay. You can accommodate all that. But it became, if you think about, we had to recruit. And I'm not a marketing guy. Marketing guy says, all right, I ask for 100. I place 100 requests, and then maybe 40 are successful. I'm not used to this. As an engineer, I say, if I do 100, I want to have 100. That's it. So you have to have this sales marketing mentality, which was difficult for me. And so we had failure. Like I have to call maybe 50 industries in order to get 30 products. Okay, so this is not easy. And then we found out that in Florida, we were sort of reaching a point where the big product designs was limited because the industry is not that was not that strong at that point of time. Today it's wonderful. You should be able to do that. But maybe not the manufacturing industry as such, but they have all kinds of defense industry and things like that. So we had to branch out, like we did products in North Carolina or wherever it is. Okay, we took that because you have to branch out, to get this. So this became this is difficult. Like come January, February, March, April, May, you are busy. If it takes you about 20 to 25 hours to get a product for the design times 30, that's 600 hours. So that's about 4 months or so. That's a lot. Full time. Phone calls, letters, product specific, whatever. This is not easy. And so as the program grew, this was eating a lot in my time, okay? But you do what you can, okay? That's the reason why I said I need help, but also I wanted help because I said there has to be something where I can phase out. Because finally I was supposed to be retired, not being the least paid engineer in Florida for the rest of my life. I didn't mind that, by the way. They were very nice over there, like about 3 or 4 years after I left. They said, we want to give you an outstanding award. In IBM, when you got an outstanding award, you usually got about $50,000 or something like that. I got a nice plaque, okay, something like that at the one of the graduation ceremonies, which was nice, okay. And the dean there was very nice. This was the electrical guy.
Well, I remember in the ceremony, Bud Beesman, who was the associate dean for student affairs, as he's introducing Heinz, he said he had a distinguished 43-year career with General Electric.
Well, everybody makes mistakes when they get older. You too, okay.
Okay. So then you were happy with your choice and having and transitioning Dr. Stanfield to this position and you easing yourself out.
Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't be here.
Okay.
No, look, everybody has a somewhat different style, okay? Mm-hmm. And Key's style initially was different than what I thought it should be. But then we worked together, and I think, like I remember I was gone, and I think at one point of time he did not take the recruiting of projects as serious as I thought he should have because he slipped. And I think I told him that too, so if I'm not mistaken, okay? And so, because that's not his nature and that's not my nature. We don't like that so much, okay? So, yes, I am, and I think he's doing a great job. I wish he would not eliminate some of the structured development courses as much as I think they should be. There are some other areas which we talk about in a minute, okay? Which concerns me.
Okay.
And he knows them to some degree.
We're getting to that. Okay, yeah, so looking back over the past 20 years of IPPD, what has changed the most and what do you think has changed the least?
Well, what has changed the most, it's not the program itself, it's the environment in which we live. If you look back in the early 90s, we had in the United States still a pretty strong manufacturing base, okay? And even though we tried all kinds of things, we lost the base. Manufacturing shrunk, okay? That's the reason why so many middle-income people are out of a job. Our manufacturing people to some degree. So a lot of that moved to overseas. The Chinese today, they graduate about 3 times the number of engineers we graduate in the United States, if not more. So for that kind of a program, you have to say, all right, we are training people for a shrinking manufacturing base, but not necessarily for all products, because many of the products the Chinese or Indonesians and so on make, they are designed over here and manufactured over there. So now you have we talked about it, we have a different environment. I think I have to look this up here. I wrote this down here. We have to understand whether the environment, what we do today with IPPD, is still valid to what we did in 1993, and I don't think it is. Let me give you an example. What Boeing is, big airplane company, okay? And they developed what is called the Dreamliner 787, big advanced. And they decided that rather than being in control of all the manufacturing, they would subcontract most of it, and they ended up with over 500 suppliers, and they got completely out of control, and that's the reason why the 787 slipped many times. That was one reason, because when you do that, you have to make sure that the suppliers have a specification. You have to design a product. You as the originator, you have to agree with the design, have them go through one of the phase reviews if you want to, and then say, all right, I control you. So they lost supplier control, which is very bad. So that's one issue as you move from internal control of manufacturing or what you make into not only contractors in the United States, but contractors worldwide, because that's the situation. Like I worked for a company as a board member in California, and we made printed circuit cards and other components for Apple and IBM and whatever else it was. And that was a booming company. It was $10.5 billion company when I was there. And then and then step by step, our customers like Apple would say, I'm no longer sourcing with you. I can get it for much less cost first it was Taiwan, then it was Indonesia, then it was China. So they moved all that stuff over there. And today, Apple, you all have probably Apple products or so. When they decide something, in the manufacturing of that is all done overseas. It's not done here anymore. So you still need design engineers and you still need people to understand how you do that, but the complexity, how you do that overseas and so on is different. And I'm not sure we are training our people, students, to be able to do that. So that's different. You have the whole environment also has changed. Like when I look at what I did to make a contract with one of our suppliers or one of our customers, was one page simple, okay? And he makes a contract, I don't know, it takes several pages or something like that. Huh?
Well, the one thing that has changed from the university is also the focus on export controls.
I know. Yeah.
And that's gotten out of hand.
So
what's export controls?
So there are certain products that are considered dual use, commercial and military, and they have different restrictions on them. There's some products that are designed that are strictly for the military, and there are certain countries that we cannot share any information about those, how they're made or the specifications. because it's illegal. And if you are a citizen of one of those countries that we can't share that with, if you just happen to be in the United States and I told something about it to you, that would be just the same as if I picked that product up and I shipped it to them. There's severe laws about this. And so you can imagine in a university environment, when we have so many nationalities there on the campus, that it's very, very difficult to do product development projects that have export control technology. So we've basically been told, no, we can't do this. And so part of the contracting part that Heinz is referring to is that I go through these lengthy checklists with our sponsors to make sure that they're not going to hand us anything that's export controlled. The students won't be exposed to it. We really have to insulate them. And then things seem to be double and triple checked by the administration to make sure that's the case.
Do you think that has hindered the growth of the program?
Well, I would say Boeing would be a great example of a company. Some of our defense contractors gave us, the Air Force used to give us wonderful projects.
Yeah.
And we haven't touched any projects with the Air Force in 8 years, maybe 10 years.
Well, it's part of it is intellectual property, part of it is contracts, like we just said, and so on and so forth. Yeah, we had wonderful, but we had an excellent defense industry down there in, what was it? Not Ocala. Orlando. Yeah. Very, very strong, okay? And they gave us a lot of projects all the time. You say yeah.
We still are doing projects with Lockheed Martin, for instance. But we have to very carefully compartmentalize them so that we can do them and not expose the students.
Industry environment has changed, a part of it because of this outsourcing. There's hardly if you look at a car company today, okay, they do the final assembly, but all the parts and everything else is made by somebody else, okay? So they have this just-in-time concept, where they do all these parts in their Japanese concept, and then they just put them together with glue or whatever else they use, I don't know, and build the cars. And that's not only the U.S. companies, the same thing is done by German is leading in some areas of cars, Japan is doing it, and I make a bet with you, as the Chinese continue to build cars, they will do exactly the same. They will not do it. So what you try to do, what they found out, what they have to do is you do in-house what you think you can do best. And you don't want to drag along a significant amount of overhead because it impacts your product cost. So if you can get a supplier who makes tires, not only for me, but for another 5 car companies, the cost of the tire must be beneficial for me rather than me making it myself. Okay? And the tire is a stupid example, but you understand what I mean. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are other things like I have a Mercedes out there. If Mercedes is here, they use clutches in there. They are made in Japan for Mercedes. And the first one didn't work so well, but that's aside the point. You always have that problem, okay? Yeah. Well, it failed on my wife's car. Okay. So the environment has changed, and I recommend it to the IPPD board probably 4 or 5 years ago and say, hey, look, guys, you have to think about whether you have to change. Maybe the engineers we have to train now, they still have to be part of a development process, because that's finally that's what an engineer is there for. An engineer designs, okay? But then you have all these other people like business case, like manufacturing, quality, and so on and so forth. The whole outsourcing and so on is different for them. Like a business case is different if you say, I do everything in-house rather than outsourcing and so on. It's very questionable today whether sourcing all that stuff in China and bring it over here. And it will change. China will not be able to continue to do that because, they have a declining population. They have to pay more for their workers, and they cannot compete with labor costs only. It's only a matter of time, and to land things over here will no longer be beneficial. So what they are going to do is probably automate this whole thing, but there's a limit to what you can do. I mean, I've bad experiences in IBM. We try to overcome our non-competitiveness with automation, and it bombed out. We are stuck with all these huge investments. And so that will change, okay? But by the time they have created so many engineers, they will be able to develop our products and, take on some of what we do over here.
Okay.
So it will change, okay?
So in the past 20 years, what changes has IPPD made that you haven't agreed with?
Well,
I got to leave the room again.
How do they say this is when you do not answer a question in court? What is that?
Oh, you plead the fifth?
Take the fifth. No, I said that before, and look, Keith has to do what he has to do, okay? And for me to sit here and say I disagree with this or this is not right. Would I have done everything the same as he did? I don't know. But he was addressing problems, and he was trying to find solutions. And as long as the spirit of what we try to do, namely to educate our engineers in an interdisciplinary environment, as long as we teach them how to communicate with each other, how to work in a team, how to recognize that design is not only for function, but also for manufacturability and quality and things like that. How you finally achieve that, I don't know. Whether the first approach was right or whatever he does. As long these are some of the overriding things. What bothered me to some degree is, and this is again, I had no choice, sometimes I feel we are polluting the IPPD process as designed with bringing manufacturing research, or with bringing research projects in there, or bring projects in there from professors who want to have a built model and so on and so forth, because they may not fit as well. I shouldn't say pollute, he has no choice but to do that. But, it's maybe interesting for the students to do, but it doesn't help to educate them in what I said before, This is what the industry said years ago. The students we get, they don't know how to communicate, they don't know how to work in teams. These were the top priorities. They don't know how to work in interdisciplinary team and things like that. That's what we try to resolve. And they don't know how to work, do manufacturing ability and quality and things like that. So, and that all changed years ago. But in any case, so you have to adopt. What I don't like, what I didn't like, is that, and that's my organizational belief, okay, is that we moved this IPPD process from where I thought it belonged, because the department chairs have to support that, the faculty has to support that. It's part of the engineering education, from the College of Engineering to something which I don't understand. What are you? Where are you located now?
So still in the College of Engineering, but now part of the Innovation Institute. So I'm still in the College of Engineering, still a faculty member, but I'm in a different unit. So it's not part of a department.
Okay, so it's still in the College of Engineering.
Absolutely.
So the guy you report to is what, Eric?
So I report to Eric Sander.
And he reports?
And he reports directly to Cami, to the dean. So I'm just one heartbeat away from the dean, Heinz.
I know. That may not be so good, but then again, who knows? Now, the reason why I say that is, I hope this organization does not, I want to have the department chairs own this, okay? Because it's part of their functional, specific, like electrical engineer or mechanical engineering training or education. And it may work, may not. All I said is I didn't like that so much, but if you think it's okay, whatever.
Okay. So I just have a few more questions, and then we can wrap it up. Okay. How do you see the future of the program?
How do I do what?
How do you see the future of the program?
Well, I think we talked about that before, didn't we? To some degree, I said there are certain basic things in the program you want to maintain, like you want to teach your students, your specialty students, like chemical engineer or the electrical engineer or mechanical engineer, how to design something in an interdisciplinary environment and be able to work in a team and so on, because that's what they have to do when they go out there. So that one should not change. But what we have to think about is, and I don't know whether this is a problem or not, because I'm not smart enough. He is smarter than I am. So, and in any case, we have to understand what is this new global marketing doing to us. Okay? And are we educating our students? The basics still have to remain, but are we teaching them something which they will not be able to use, or do we have to do something in addition to what we are teaching them today? And so, like, let me give you, for instance, when I came to Endicott the first time, and before that I worked in Germany in a manufacturing engineering department. I worked very closely with manufacturing engineers here. IBM always had a policy to make certain things in-house and then buy certain things from suppliers, okay? And in order to be able to have these suppliers supply to our specifications, our design, we had a special department which we called procurement engineering. I learned that in the United States and I implemented that in Germany as well. It's not, because normally the purchasing person had to go out and buy something, but the procurement engineer had to go out and work with the supplier and say, these are the specs, this is what you have to do, this is the quality, and so on and so forth. Because the purchasing guy is usually an administrative kind of a person, signs a contract and so on. But these are technical things and you have to go out. Not in all cases, but if you start to outsource a complex mechanical or electrical component or something like that, you have to be able to go to the supplier and say, all right, these are the specs, this is what you have to do, just show me how you do it, and things like that. So you need some technical talent in the outsourcing world. And many of the engineers will have to be able to do that. Okay. Now, you can train them as regular engineers, and then when they get to a company, and the company says, all right, we will buy 50% of what we use, and we like you to be the technical interface, that probably will work too. Okay? But then again, when you work with suppliers, there are certain purchasing rules and things like that which you have to understand. It's not like going down in the line and say, Charlie, you have to manufacture that a little bit different. So you cannot do that. So this is a little bit different. So is there something we have to do in the education to get our people understand how to react in an outsourcing environment to the degree we are doing it now. Not only locally, but now internationally.
Okay.
And so that's one area which I think we should really think about. So in any case, like the reason I also say that is clearly, when Boeing outsourced the 787, they blew it left and right because their engineers, they were used to have something manufactured on the line. They could go down there and correct it or something like that. Now suddenly they bought a wing in Italy or I don't know what they did. It was ridiculous, okay? And they lost control. So there's a special talent to keep track of that.
Okay.
And like, for example, like if you do that internationally, you have to be able to understand that there are time zones. Like I worked in international, when I worked in Paris, I worked usually from, let's say, 12 o'clock noon, earlier like that, until 10 o'clock at night, because I had to be able to communicate with the United States, or the other way around. Or if you travel there, you have to understand 6 hours time difference. You're a little bit tired when you get there and have to work. So it's a different environment. Nowadays, of course, you can, and I don't know whether we have the right tools. That's another whole other area. I'm not sure we train or educate our design engineers using the best available tools, okay? And like nowadays you can start designing a product here in the United States on the computer, CAD/CAM, whatever else it is, and then the design engineer in Japan takes it over while we all are sleeping, sends it back here, and the other way through. Certainly in software development, no question about it. And so you shrink this whole time of development significantly. You can do that. I think Keith knows that quite well. I think he's even planning to have something like that. Like the whole German industry now is working very hard to come up with some communication among, from sales to marketing to industry to automation. This will all be one common system. I wish them good luck because I tried to do that many years ago. It didn't work, but the Germans may be able to do it now. They also, as part of this whole development now, maybe in the US too, but not to the same degree I know like they do in Germany right now, is to make a prototype, to make a mechanical prototype. They use printed, whatever it's called.
3D printing.
We do that too. Okay, so it's different than what we used to do. So you can do some things different, and I'm not sure we let our young engineers involved in that. So I would sit back and say, how do they design today in the industry? What are the most advanced design? And to what degree can we replicate that and teach that ours too? Don't forget when we started up this program, my wife had a computer upstairs where she typed all these things. It had 1 megabyte storage capability. So now you have your a personal computer with 500 gigabytes or something like that. So and faster and so on and so forth. So it's much different, and maybe you have to find out whether designing products today you may have more simulation capability, rather than going through these experiential designs and so on. So I think this is something what we should think about. And I think Keith looks into that, but of course he likes to do something, and then somebody says, "I don't have the money to do that."
Okay.
But you always can try, and then you can go back to industry and say, "Can you donate something or something like that?"
Okay, so if you could say one thing to the IPPD community and to future engineers, what would it be?
One thing to IPPD and the IPPD community, what would I say? I really don't know. There are many things I could say, but not one thing. Okay. No, all I can say is, and I say it not in one word, that's impossible, but I say, this is very important. Try to improve what you are doing right now to stay up to date what is required. And even though this may be frustrating at times, make sure you can do this as the industry does that within a certain period of time.
That was really good. Okay, so I have two more questions. In your opinion, you've had this amazing, amazing career. What would you say is your greatest achievement?
What was the greatest achievement?
Yes, this amazing life that you've led.
Well, I tell you, IPPD was an achievement, but I'm wrong in taking all the credit. Mm-hmm. I'll talk about that. It's just a little bit funny. The credit belongs to Win Phillips and to the department chairs and to the faculty. Okay, I was just the administrator to say this is what we possibly could. They did it. Okay, so that's first of all. And if you have this founder stuff, that's what you should tell. I'm serious on it. That's what. But what was my greatest achievement? Look, I started as a young as a toolmaker apprentice. Okay, I had nothing before I became an apprentice in IBM. I was digging ditches because I had no money. Okay, and then I worked with IBM, and they give you some money, but not much, and we pulled through. My mom had to work every day. We had to wait until she came home at night so that we can buy something to eat. So this was a tough time. But for me to grow from where I was to one of the highest and first IBM vice president in World Trade was probably quite an achievement, I think. Now, this doesn't come for nothing, okay? You have to work hard. Sometimes harder than what you would like, and so that may have some problems with your personal life and so on and so forth. You also have to be lucky. You have to be at the right place at the right time to do something like that. And I was lucky because, I was working in an industry which was growing leaps and bounds, okay? It's not that easy today. And I brought the right skill to the table, and probably also the right personality in order to do it. Third, in order to do that, you never can stop learning. You have to educate yourself all the time. Don't stop. So if you graduated as a toolmaker apprentice, now you have to learn how to design tools. Then you learn how to understand electronics, and you become an electronic engineer. Then you go to Scotland and learn English, Scottish, whatever. That's what I'm saying. So you have to always do something, and sometimes you also have to be able to take a step back in order to make a step forward. Okay, like I remember when I had a pretty good position here in the United States, and then they moved us to Europe, and I had to take on a different responsibility, and I didn't like that so much. And then I finally said, all right, in time it will come. When I lost my job, when I was moved out of Fishkill, East Fishkill, which was one of the most challenging, this was a big, big technology company. I not only a responsibility for the 13,000 people there, but for another 4,000 in Manassas. So technology was very important. So when they said, all right, we want you to go to headquarters, I didn't like that at all. I said, I like this here and so on. In hindsight, it probably was the right time for me to leave, because if you were in this position, sooner or later you would fail, because technology always had these kind of problems. So, and then, of course, I moved in there, a lower-level job, And then with a few months, they made me an IBM vice president. So, you know, I didn't do that on a calculating basis, but I said, now I have to learn not only to work with world trade people, now I have to learn how to work with the United States. I mean, I knew the Endicott people and some people and so on and so forth, but you know, to manage a worldwide organization with 120,000 people and 600 high management potentials and so on and so forth, it's very interesting, and you can never stop learning.
Okay.
They all hated me because and he knows that I keep a notebook.
Yeah.
So each time I met somewhere and they told me something, I said, I took a note. Okay. Then 3 months later, I came back to them, and then they gave me another presentation. I said, it's strange. Last time you told me this, what's going on here? So because, you know, maybe some people can remember exactly what was said before. I didn't trust that. I took notes.
Wow.
And so when you asked me to do this here, I looked at my notes from 1994. I can show it to you. The notebook's there. You know, when I met with Dean Phillips and told him that I need help and so on and so forth, it's good to do that. And I really enjoyed it. That was a wonderful experience. Especially, I always wanted to teach. Now, this was not necessarily a teaching environment. It was sort of like what I was doing in IBM, managing something, getting together, project management, and so on and so forth. But I also did some teaching. I did some teaching with a team I managed. And now I'm continue to teach in the Coast Guard Auxiliary. So I like to work with people. What I don't like is the administration.
I think we can all agree on that one. Okay.
By the way, I shouldn't be so negative. Don't even put this in writing here.
Okay, I will.
But no, this is not only unique to the university. The same thing is true in industry and anywhere. Okay, but in administration is very important because they are supposed to grease the skids. Okay, so that things work. Sometimes there's too much grease, you know, that's where the problem starts. Yeah. Like when I left and he took over, you know, they were really clamping down on all kinds of things, I thought. But he's used to this. He grew up in this environment.
Okay. All right, so my final question is...
One word.
Yes, IPPD in one word.
Well, look, I thought about that. This is difficult. I can give you a German word.
Okay. Okay, you translate it.
I'll try. No, you know, the translation would be, to me, to have this done and so on and so forth, and the students participating and the faculty and so on. You would say something, you would say outstanding, okay? My wife said I should say a different word. It was what did you say? Amalgamation? You know, that's another word you can use because you are merging various disciplines in the one combined thing, okay? And that's not an easy thing to do, but it worked, okay? And it works. It's now 20 years since it worked, okay? And the German word for all that is, of course, hervorragend. Hervorragend means ausgezeichnet or outstanding. Or
okay.
Okay.
All right.
And other than that, I don't have a thing. This is impossible to describe that in one word. Unless, what did Vin say when you asked him that question?
He said awesome.
He says awesome.
Awesome, that's what he said.
Well, that's a colloquial word.
But that he said...
So outstanding is similar to awesome.
He said awesome. Okay. Yeah. So I have no further questions. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add that I perhaps didn't cover, any final thoughts or comments, or Dr. Sanfield, anything that you might want to add?
Do I have more questions?
Yeah, do you have anything perhaps that you want to say that I didn't cover?
I don't think. We talked into how I got into the UF. And I talked about the background, how we got from an initial request of the dean to advise him on manufacturing, with a proposal what to do, recommendation not to do it, into IPPD program, and and we talked about that. I think this is important to understand, and because the dean really was gung-ho to establish a manufacturing department, but it would have meant that we would have to pull manufacturing out from the various disciplines or something like that. We didn't have faculty to do it, and there were not many faculty around because after in the 1950s, manufacturing played a subordinate role. Go on here. So the transition was not a shock. You have to tell that to win. Is wrong here. I mean, look.
I sent him a follow-up email.
No. I mean, Win, and then the other dean, Czech-Ohanian, were the most wonderful people to work with. Okay? Supportive, tough, but very, very good, and I really enjoyed that a lot. I also can tell you the department chairs at that time, all of them, I like to work with, Gerhard Ritter I still communicate with today. He's retired, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, he's a sailboat. He wants to bring Win and me together. Okay. I think, you said best regards from John Seigert?
Yeah, so John Seigert is at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill now. He actually left UF to go to Clemson, yes, and then from Clemson to Chapel Hill. So I contacted him the other day to invite him to the 20th anniversary, and he
okay.
He said he wouldn't be able to make it, but to please send his regards.
Okay, good. You talk to him again, say hello, okay?
I will do that.
John Seigert was one of the best mechanical engineers you can have as a faculty coach, no question. And he was, he lost his wife during that time. They went through a tough time. And I think he's remarried now, right? And he's very happy, so that's good. And so Lyman Tufekci was a very good ISE person. Bill Eisenstadt, and all the electrical people were very good. Dave Mikolaitis was super. And of course, my friend Spiros and Ranga.
Yes.
Unbelievable. The chemical engineers. And, they do this mega course, that's good. So this was a very, very good team. And I'm quite sure you have a similar team today, okay? So,
Heinz, one of the things that Oscar Crisali had mentioned in this process of doing IPPD as a coach is prior to doing this, he didn't really know how to talk to industry. And from the IPPD experience, he's learned how to talk, how to speak in deliverables, timelines, and it's actually changed the way that he's managed his research programs as a result.
Well, that's good. By the way, I think all of the faculty coaches experience that to some degree. Yeah. And I remember we had one faculty coach, Bullock, Tom.
Tom Bullock, yes.
The chairman came to me and said he has this Tom Bullock as a faculty coach, but Tom has some personal idiosyncrasies, okay? And I said, well, let's find out. I'd like to have him, so I took him on one of my exploratory visits, and we talked in the car. And he was a little bit stubborn and so on and so forth. but I thought he would be an excellent coach. And he turned out to be an excellent coach. He was very good, okay? And Mark Law never wanted to be a coach. Is he a department chair now?
He actually became a department chair for electrical, and then he was the associate dean for faculty affairs in the College of Engineering, and just recently is come on board as the new director of the Honors College at UF.
Okay, so he made some nice progress. Yeah. So I knew him from before I came to the university, from my previous visits. I knew Kevin before, and I met, of course, Jack Elsinger was a very supportive person, and I think he helped in many, many cases to get this done. If you look at, where his office is now?
Mm-mm.
No?
No.
Well, you should have seen mine. When you come to the university, and I had a pretty reasonable position in IBM. So with the position comes not a luxury office, but you have a secretary and you have some staff which supports you, and you have a computer and all that stuff. So I came to the university. I didn't even have a chair to sit on there. So I went to Jack and said, "Jack, can you at least give me a chair?" He said, "Yeah, we have this secretarial chair there," so which I sat for 3 years, okay? And then I said, "Do you have any old furniture?" "Yeah, we have this. We're ready to throw them out." I said, "Give them to me. I need a chair." So that's how you start up. And I didn't mind, because don't forget how I grew up. I had nothing, okay? So I don't care. I don't need luxury offices. But I needed an office because more often than not, you will find out, and he probably has the same situation, students come and want to talk to you. And some come back and say, "I'm ready to quit," okay, to talk to them about it. And I say, "Why?" And then find out and then advise them what they should be doing different, and so on. And then, of course, I didn't have any secretarial support at the college. So I came home every week, and then I had to prepare all these presentations for the next week, so I could talk to the team and stuff like that. So Pam was busy. She was bitching all the time because I asked her to do things on a old 1 megabyte computer, which I still can show you the drawings of this whole thing. It was interesting, like a curve, how development costs increase over time and stuff like that, or do the whole development process, okay, and so on and so forth. She did all that stuff, so it was good. I didn't have a scanner or anything like that. Everything was done on these stupid foils, Nowadays you use PowerPoint, okay. So remember what I said is the industry, the American industry and the industry worldwide has changed in the last 20 years. And I think we really have to think about how we educate our engineers in this particular IPPD program is still representative of what industry needs, or do we have to add something on it? Usually you would probably add something onto it, and that would make it probably non-manageable, okay? But we have also these weekly seminars. You still do have that, don't you?
Yes.
So I think we talk in those about business cases, about quality and all kinds of things, which are interesting for everyone, okay? So, to add a component in there where you talk about how to manage outsourcing, how to validate outsourcing, what is required for control of that, and so on, that would not be a bad idea. It can be done, and you probably will not, I don't think you should change you have enough problems to get the IPPD program through. Okay, this is without deliverables. But you have to make sure that the students understand that when they get out, It may be a completely different world. What I like in IPPD is that they sort of work today already as an outsourced vendor to the main industry, so they know. They play already the role of a vendor, okay, if you want to. So that I like that because I saw that, and obviously, hopefully, we have the right tools now to do this in a more elegant way than what we did 20 years ago. So that's important. That's a major thing we have to understand. Don't get into a Boeing situation. Our students should never allow to go out in the industry and allow this. No, very bad. The other thing you probably should try to lecture at one point of time is the complexity of supply chain management. Maybe you do this today, I don't know. But, you know, it's different if you have a vendor down the road and bring the parts here, or if you buy it somewhere in Shenzhen, and then you load it on a plane and bring it here and so on. Or you have to put it on a boat and you have a lot of inventory sitting there. So supply chain management is almost a science today. And I had to learn this extensively when I worked for some of the industries as a board member. And it's not complex, but you have to be aware of how to do it. How do you evaluate something financially that is being made in China, put on a plane, shipped over here, arrives maybe 2 weeks later or something like that, and then you put it in there. Is that cost effective or not? And so now suddenly you have to say, all right, well, you tie up inventory for 2 weeks, it costs you money. Your reaction time may be different because you take that long. And so, is it worth? And what happens if we have, some of the suppliers over there? They may go on a strike or something like that. How do you ensure continuity? How do you ensure that they are not over-shipping so that they have a lot of inventory? How much should you keep and things like that? Because you have these long supply chains. Okay.
Yeah, kind of interesting. We had some students that were making orders over the last few weeks from China. I had to remind them that, hey, Chinese New Year, you may have people who are partying hard here and may not pay attention to your orders. And luckily we got some pumps in that were pretty critical just this week. So.
Okay, well, look, thank you for your patience to listen to this old man.
Oh, it was an amazing interview. Thank you so much for talking to us. I had a really nice time.